Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Yep, a truly influential book.
Absolutely. And our mission today is to pull out the core ideas, the really impactful stuff about connecting with the present moment, finding that inner peace. We want to give you, the learner, a clear path through his thinking.
Maybe even find some surprising angles along the way.
Exactly. So we're working mainly from excerpts from The Power of Now itself.
Right. We'll be looking at, how Tolle sees the mind, consciousness, the now itself, which is central, obviously, and also pain, the ego, and this idea of surrender.
Okay, let's dive in. Tolle's own journey, his awakening, it started with this really intense thought, I cannot live with myself any longer.
It sounds quite dramatic, yeah.
It does. But what's the key insight there? What did that moment spark?
Well, the fascinating thing is, in that moment of sort of despair, he suddenly saw a split. There was the I having the thought, and then there was the self that the I couldn't live with.
So two distinct things.
Precisely. It was this sudden realization that you aren't just your thoughts. There's something deeper, an awareness behind the thoughts.
Right, like you suddenly hear the voice in your head as just a voice, not necessarily you.
Exactly. And that leads straight into seeing the mind as, well, a tool. Something we're supposed to use for specific things, not the entirety of who we are.
But it often feels like it is who we are, doesn't it? That constant chatter.
It does. And Tolle throws out this statistic, which is pretty staggering. He estimates 80 to 90% of most people's thinking is repetitive, useless, often dysfunctional, even harmful.
80 to 90%, wow.
Yeah. It's just draining energy.
Yeah.
Like leaving a leaky faucet running all the time.
Yeah.
Recognizing that leak, that's maybe the first real step.
So much wasted energy. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? How do we get beyond just being run by that repetitive thinking?
Well, this is where enlightenment comes in, but maybe not in the way people usually think about it.
Okay.
Tolle sees it as rising above thought, not eliminating it completely.
So you can still think.
Oh, absolutely. You use the mind when you need it for practical tasks, planning, solving problems, but you do it from a place of inner stillness.
You're not lost in the thought stream.
Exactly. You kind of oscillate between focused thinking and that inner quiet. He suggests that real creativity actually comes from that oscillation, from dipping into what he calls no mind.
No mind, meaning consciousness without constant thought.
Precisely. It's in that space, that stillness, that fresh ideas can actually surface. Thinking that's just disconnected from that deeper awareness, he says it becomes, well, barren, insane, destructive.
Okay, so creating that space from the mind is key. Let's talk about consciousness and pain. Tolle says pain we create now is always about non-acceptance, some kind of resistance to what is.
Yes, and the core idea here is understanding how we resist. On the level of thought, it shows up as judgment. This shouldn't be happening. This is bad.
Labeling everything.
Right. And on the emotional level, it's just negativity, frustration, anger, disappointment, that kind of thing.
And the more we resist, the more we identify with the mind's story about the situation.
The more intense the pain becomes.
Yeah.
It's almost like a direct correlation. Our suffering is proportional to our resistance to the present.
So we're basically arguing with reality.
Which, as you said, is a battle you can't win. The mind naturally wants to deny the problem. Now, to escape it, and this resistance, this pattern, feeds into what he calls the pain body.
The pain body. That sounds heavy. What exactly is it?
It's a really crucial concept. Think of it as a kind of energy field within you made up of all the accumulated emotional pain from your past that wasn't fully faced and accepted at the time.
So like residual negativity.
Yeah, but it's more than just memory. It takes on a kind of semi-autonomous life. And its prime directive, weirdly enough, is survival.
How does an energy field survive?
By getting you to identify with it. It subtly pulls you in, makes you believe that you are that anger or that grief. Then it gets to live through you, to experience itself through your reactions.
Wow, so it needs to be fed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it feeds on experiences that resonate with its own energy. Anger, destructiveness, hatred, drama, conflict, even illness sometimes.
It seeks out more pain.
Yes. Tolle puts it very starkly. Pain can only feed on pain. It finds joy completely indigestible.
That's quite an image. So are we doomed to just keep feeding this thing? How do we break that cycle?
This is where consciousness comes back in as the transformative force. He says you can't fight the pain body directly. That's just more resistance, more fuel for it.
Like trying to fight darkness with more darkness.
Exactly. Instead, the key is awareness, observation. He quotes this idea. Everything is shown up by being exposed to the light, and whatever is exposed to the light itself becomes light.
So shine the light of awareness on it.
Precisely. Watch it when it arises, feel the emotion in your body, notice the thoughts it triggers. But do it without judgment, without getting drawn into its story. Just be the witness.
Watching implies acceptance, he says.
Yes. That detached observation is acceptance. It stops feeding the pain body. You're withdrawing the unconscious identification that gives it power. You starve it of attention, essentially.
Observing without judgment. Easier said than done sometimes.
More definitely. It's a practice. But this leads us right into the core teaching, the power of mind. Now, Tolle says the problems of the mind can't be solved at the level of the mind. Why is that so important? Because the fundamental issue, he argues, is our identification with the mind in the first place. That identification creates what he calls the ego.
The false self.
Right, this sort of substitute identity that we mistake for our true self, which he says is rooted in a deeper dimension called being. The ego is like a branch cut off from the vine. It inherently feels separate, lacking, incomplete.
And because it feels lacking, it's always needing something, always searching.
Absolutely. The ego is defined by its endless needs. It's vulnerable, it's fearful, it's constantly wanting to prop itself up. It attaches itself to things, possessions, status, beliefs, relationships.
Even problems.
Sparely problems, weirdly enough. Tolle points out that the ego often has a deep, unconscious investment in pain and suffering. Your problems become part of your identity.
I am someone who struggles with X.
Exactly. So letting go of the problem feels like letting go of a part of yourself. The ego clings to conflict and difficulty because it helps define it, helps it feel real.
That's a really unsettling thought. So how does the now cut through all this ego stuff? He calls it the key, but also says it's often missed.
Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox. He argues that spiritual masters throughout history have always pointed towards the now, but we tend to miss the sheer immediacy and power of it.
We turn it into a concept.
We do. We think about it, analyze it. He references things like Jesus saying, "Take no thought for the morrow," or just the simple, unburdened presence of a flower living completely in the now. But we often don't experience the now directly. It remains hidden in plain sight.
Because we're lost in thought, usually about the past or future.
Exactly. And here's the crucial dynamic. Identifying with the mind gives it energy. Observing the mind withdraws that energy.
Observation starves the mind's momentum.
Yes, and that withdrawn energy transforms into presence. Once you taste that presence, you realize you can choose to step out of the stream of compulsory thinking when it's not needed. It doesn't mean you can't use time plan, remember, but you do it more effectively from a place of presence.
Presence dissolves the mind's grip. It creates space.
Perfectly put.
Yeah.
And he links all negativity directly to psychological time.
Too much future, too much past.
Right. Anxiety, stress, worry, that's all projecting into the future. Guilt, regret, resentment, bitterness, that's all being stuck in the past. Being fully present automatically dissolves negativity because its root cause, psychological time, isn't there.
He says freedom from negativity isn't just for saints, it's our natural state when we're present.
Yes, it's the liberation that all true spiritual paths point towards. And this connects to his distinction between your life situation and your life.
Okay, explain that one.
Your life situation is all the stuff in time. Your circumstances, your history, your future plans, the narratives in your head. It's mind stuff.
The story we tell ourselves.
Exactly. But your life, your life is always now. It's this moment. It's the only reality there is. He talks about finding the narrow gate that leads to life, and that gate is the present moment.
And he suggests asking, do I have a problem right now, this very second?
Yes. And often, the answer is no. Your situation might seem problematic, but in the actual now just breathing, just being here, usually there's no immediate problem. There's a sense of okayness.
That's a powerful check-in. He also says joy, ease, and lightness are signs you're present.
They're like the litmus test. If they're absent, it's a good bet that time past or future thinking is clouding the present moment.
And when you stop striving compulsively away from the now?
The joy of just being flows in naturally. Presence brings stillness, peace. You're not deriving your sense of self from your history or future goals anymore. You're rooted in being right here. The need to become someone else just falls away.
Okay, let's shift slightly. Tolle talks about ordinary and deep unconsciousness. He says most of us aren't flipping between conscious and unconscious, but are usually somewhere on the unconscious spectrum.
Yeah, that's a subtle but important point. Ordinary unconsciousness is kind of the default state for many people. It's being identified with your thoughts, emotions, reactions, desires, aversions, basically being run by the ego without realizing it.
It's not necessarily intense suffering, though.
No, often it's just a low-level background static. Unease, discontent, boredom, nervousness. We get so used to it we barely notice it.
And we try to escape it.
Unconsciously, yes. Through distractions, numbing agents, alcohol, drugs, overeating, workaholism, compulsive shopping, endless entertainment. Anything to temporarily soothe that underlying unease, which can, of course, lead to addiction.
So that's the ordinary level. What about deep unconsciousness?
That's basically ordinary unconsciousness intensified. It usually flares up when the ego feels seriously threatened or when there's a major challenge, loss, or conflict.
Like when the pain body gets triggered.
Exactly. Deep unconsciousness often means the pain body has taken over and you're fully identified with it. Think intense rage, deep depression, acute fear, aggression. He argues that physical violence isn't possible without someone falling into deep unconsciousness.
And this can happen collectively, too.
Yes, crowds or even whole nations can generate these powerful negative energy fields when gripped by deep unconsciousness.
He mentions a Native American chief observing the tense faces of white people, always seeking something, linking it to this ancient restlessness.
Right. Tolle sees this resistance to the being. Now, this loss of connection to being as a deep collective dysfunction underlying our often dehumanized industrial civilization. He mentions Freud saw the discontent, but didn't see the root cause or the way out.
It's a pretty stark diagnosis of the modern human condition, so how do we wake up from these states?
The antidote, again, is self-observation, making it a habit. Asking yourself throughout the day, am I at ease right now? What's going on inside me?
Paying attention to your inner state.
Yes. Noticing the thoughts, the feelings, any tension in the body, catching that background static, identifying the subtle ways you might be resisting the present moment.
And it doesn't matter if the negativity feels justified?
Ultimately, no. Because resistance itself makes the present moment an enemy. It creates inner conflict, suffering for you, and it pollutes the collective human psyche. Think about the scale of violence in the 20th century that reflects a deeply negative inner state on a mass scale.
So taking responsibility for our inner state is crucial. And when faced with an unbearable present moment, he gives 3 options.
Yes. Remove yourself from the situation, change it, or accept it totally. And the key is to choose now, and then live with that choice without inner resistance. That maintains your inner peace, your connection to being.
Okay, let's talk about inner and outer purpose. We're often so focused on outer goals, achieving things in the future.
That's the outer purpose, yeah. Arriving somewhere, accomplishing tasks, it exists in time.
But the inner purpose?
That's about deepening your being in the timeless now. It's about the quality of your consciousness in this moment, whatever you're doing.
So the how, not just the what.
Exactly. Tolle says the outer journey might have many steps, but the inner journey only has one. The step you're taking right now. If you bring full awareness to this one step, it contains all the others and the destination itself.
So we don't need to endlessly dig into our past to find this purpose.
No, he argues against getting lost in analyzing the past. Anything important for the past will show up in the present as a thought, an emotion, a pattern. Trying to free yourself from the past by focusing on the past is a trap. Only the present can free you from the past. More time can't free you from time.
The answers are here now. Okay, let's move to the body. This is interesting because many traditions have seen the body as, well, problematic.
Right, there's often been condemnation or denial. Tolle suggests this might stem from humans waking up after the metaphorical fall, feeling trapped in what seemed like just an animal body.
Finding our biology unsettling.
Perhaps leading to shame, taboos, especially around things like sex, a denial of our animal nature because consciousness wasn't strong enough yet to embrace the physical and see the divine within it. So we started dissociating.
The idea of having a body versus being it.
Exactly, which solidified into doctrines like you are not your body, leading to practices like asceticism, mortification, trying to escape the body.
But Tolle says this approach missed something crucial.
He believes so. He points to potentially lost teachings, like Jesus saying your whole body will be filled with light, or the idea of ascension with the body. He argues the body isn't the problem, it's our perception of it, skewed by the mind's sense of separation from being.
So the body isn't an obstacle.
It's the only place you can find the truth. Enlightenment isn't about escaping the form, it's about consciousness awakening within the form.
And we can use the body, connect with it to think more clearly.
Yes, He suggests integrating mind and body intelligence. Briefly stop thinking, focus attention on the inner energy field of your body, feel the stillness, then resume thinking. He calls it thinking with your whole body accessing intuition.
And this inner body awareness connects us to the unmanifested.
That's the idea. By feeling the aliveness within, the stillness beneath the surface, you access the formless dimension, the source of all things, being itself. Presence makes you sort of transparent to this deeper reality.
He mentions chi as the link.
Yes, the bridge between the formless and the formed. So the practice becomes keeping some attention within, feeling the inner body even while you're active in the world, being a bridge yourself.
Okay, so the inner body is one portal to this unmanifested dimension. What are others?
Another key one is simply the cessation of thinking.
Stopping the inner chatter.
Yes, even brief gaps. You can use conscious breathing, just feeling the breath, or intense alertness, looking at something, listening without any mental commentary. That's the essence of meditation, creating those gaps.
An intense presence itself stops the mind.
Automatically. Which is why the now is fundamental to all portals.
What else? Silence?
Yes, but not just absence of noise. Inner stillness. Also, awareness of space, the physical space around you, can lead you to the inner space of no mind, pure consciousness.
Even nothingness.
He suggests even the concept of nothing can be a portal if you don't try to grasp it mentally. It's not about understanding the unmanifested, but bringing its quality into your life.
And then there's conscious death.
Right, the involuntary portal.
Yeah.
He suggests physical death briefly opens us to the unmanifested, the light, the peace people report. Like the Tibetan Book of the Dead describes, seeing your own true self.
But we might miss it.
If we haven't touched that dimension during life, if we're still caught in resistance, fear, attachment, we might recoil and miss the opportunity for liberation. Conscious living prepares you.
So living consciously now is practice for that ultimate transition. Okay, last major theme. Surrender. How does this lead to true salvation?
True salvation, for Tolle, isn't about a future event.
Yeah.
It's freedom now from fear, suffering, lack, compulsive thinking, negativity, the weight of past and future. It's realizing you're already there, in the now, which is the only place freedom exists.
And surrender is the key to unlocking that realization.
Yes. It's the simple but profound act of yielding to the present moment, accepting it completely, without any inner reservation or resistance.
But it sounds passive, like giving up.
That's the common misunderstanding. Tolle insists surrender is perfectly compatible with action, with changing things. But the energy behind the action is different.
How so?
When you act from surrender, from acceptance of the being, now you're connected to the source energy of being. Your doing becomes infused with presence, even joy. He calls it surrendered action. The quality of your consciousness now determines the future, so surrender is actually the most powerful agent for positive change. No truly positive action comes from a place of resistance.
That reframes it completely. It's acting from acceptance, not reaction, and this applies to relationships too.
Absolutely. If you can't accept Now, you can't fully accept others as they are. You'll judge, trying to change them. Surrender means allowing others to be without needing them to fit your ego's agenda. That's where real connection happens, beyond roles and projections. Relationship challenges become opportunities to wake up together.
And what about bad things happening? Loss, failure, pain. How does surrender apply there?
Tolle suggests looking beyond the mind's labels of good and bad. From a higher perspective, things just are. Accepting the isness reveals the deeper reality, the peace that's beyond opposites. He points out that the down cycles, failure, loss, are often essential for spiritual growth. Failure is hidden in success, success and failure on the level of form.
Embracing impermanence, like the Buddhists say, all that arises passes away.
Exactly. Offering no resistance to life cycles brings peace. We can learn this from nature, plants, animals, just being totally present. He also talks about forgiveness as letting negativity pass through without reacting, which makes you invulnerable. There's a Zen story about a butcher accepting what makes every moment the best moment.
Becoming like a deep lake, undisturbed by surface waves.
That's the image. Inner peace, independent of outer conditions. Abiding in being.
And those really extreme situations, disaster, illness, deep loss, he calls them limit situations.
Yes, and paradoxically, these can sometimes force surrender when all other options, all egoic strategies fail. When there seems to be no way out.
There's always a way through.
Exactly. By facing the painfully, feeling it without the mental story, staying present with the raw sensation, that's bringing the light of consciousness into the darkness. He stresses that true consciousness involves the power to choose surrender, to shift from mind energy to spirit energy.
Wow. Okay, let's try and wrap this up. The core message from Tulsi seems to be that this journey to peace, to enlightenment, it all hinges on the present moment.
Absolutely. Recognizing its power, learning to detach from the mind's endless chatter and the ego's demands.
And crucially, surrendering to what is, not passively, but as an active shift in how you meet life.
A shifting consciousness that changes everything from the inside out.
So, here's something to ponder. If, as Tolle suggests, our problems are mostly mind-made illusions tied to time, what happens when you genuinely drop into the now?
What possibilities open up? What real problems are actually left when you let go of the mental stories about them?
It's definitely food for thought. This deep dive, of course, is just scratching the surface.
It's an invitation, really, for you, the listener, to start exploring this in your own experience.
Yeah, try observing your mind. Notice where you resist the present. Experiment with bringing your awareness fully into what you're doing right now.
See what shifts. Even small moments of presence can start to make a difference. We'd love to hear about your insights or any questions that come up for you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.